Hello, testing.
Hi, Chair Hoover. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you
Perfect.
hear
We
me?
can hear you. Thank you.
Good. Hey, actually, one question.
Yeah.
So, who's going to bang the gavel?
I will ask Commissioner Richard to bang the gavel.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I talked to him yesterday and said, if something happened, with the connection and whatnot, for him to just take over, and he might sit in the middle. I kind of left it up to him. I said, if you want to sit there, go ahead. So,
Okay. That sounds good. Thank you.
Hi, Amanda. This is Brett. I'll hop off now. I was on here early just to see if Dave Hoppick wanted to test out his sound with his issues yesterday. But if you're all good, I can hop off and wait until he joins the call.
Thanks, Brett.
Yep, sounds good.
Do you need me sitting up here, or should I just sit in the back?
I think you're okay. I'm just waiting for Dave and Commissioner Barva. Yeah. But Fred sounds good, so
Perfect.
we're just waiting for them.
Yeah. I can sit here until they're I'll go find it.
As always. Thanks. I'm gonna go tell Commissioner Richard he has to hit the gavel.
Commissioner Barve, can you hear me? I have a 925 area code.
Should be him.
And I believe that is
Or is that?
Dave's cell phone. He was having some sound issues.
All right, then give me a second.
There we go.
Yeah, this is.
All right, so Dave, are you the 925 number?
Okay, I
Yes,
can
I
hear
am.
you. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you too, Commissioner
Yes,
Barve. All right, we got everyone. Thanks.
Great. I will mute myself then. Great.
And Dave Hoppick, on your cell phone, if you could, mute yourself whenever you're not speaking, that would be perfect. Great.
We can gavel in.
Okay, I guess I'm assigned to gavel in today's meeting, and then I will turn it over to the chairman.
Good morning, Chair. We're ready for you when you're ready.
Okay. Well, good morning. Welcome to the Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for February 14th, 2024, Valentine's Day. We're doing this a little different today because I have responsibilities before the Maryland General Assembly, so I'm actually in our Annapolis office, but we've tried to set this up so that we'll have a smooth meeting. And with that, we need to first approve the minutes from our administrative meeting of February 7th, 2024. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have one item on today's consent agenda, and that is from Solar DG MD Cherry Hill LLC. Its application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity exemption.
So I move that we approve the application and direct the applicant to notify the commission in writing 2 weeks before the first export of electricity. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Today we have 3 items on the administrative agenda. The first is from Baltimore Gas and Electric Company. Its request for commission direction regarding the application of community solar credits to customers' accounts under supplier consolidated billing.
Good morning, Chair Hoover and members of the Commission, Annette Garofalo and Philip Vanderhayden on behalf of staff. Baltimore Gas and Electric Company seeks advice on 2 issues raised by the recent requirement of HB 908, now codified at PUA 306.2. These are whether a community solar subscriber may also participate in supplier consolidated billing, and 2, assuming a BGE customer enrolls as a community solar subscriber and participates in supplier consolidated billing, may BGE officially adopt the practices of applying community solar credits to non-electricity charges on a customer's bill. It is staff's position that the answer to the first question is yes, and the answer to the second question is no. Enrollment in SCB in combination with subscription to a community solar facility are distinct acts, and no statute, regulation, or order precludes customers who participate in the community solar program from simultaneously enrolling with a subscriber who offers SCB. The SCB working group is currently developing the last of its EDI transactions, which could accomplish the manner in which these dual enrollments would be accomplished. BGE asserts that it is able to retain community solar credits and apply these credits to any charges on a customer's bill, including gas distribution and gas commodity charges, because such application reduces the customer's overall bill. However, staff believes that BGE is mistaken in this assertion. A community solar subscription is a defined portion of the energy output of a community solar energy generating station, which output consists of and is measured in kilowatt hours of electricity. Under the law and COMAR, BGE is required to apply community solar credits as either kilowatt hours or by the dollar value of kilowatt hours. Excuse me. This is because the law directs that community solar be treated as the equivalent of net excess generation. Moreover, BGE's Rider 32 of its electric tariff is clear that community solar credits only apply to energy charges. It would be not possible to reduce a customer's gas bill or the customer's monthly charges by reducing the customer's metered electricity. For these reasons, staff recommends that BGE request that subscribers not be allowed to participate in community solar and supplier consolidated billing simultaneously be denied. Staff further recommends that BGE be directed to comply with its tariff and apply community solar credits solely to the current month's electricity consumption, carrying over any excess generation as stated in the law and the company's electric tariff. And staff is available for questions.
So, any questions for staff? So, Commissioner Richard, I actually can't see who's at the podium, so why don't you go ahead and just call who's standing there, because I know there's a number of people who want to comment on this. So,
Okay, great. Why don't we go ahead and hear from the company now then?
well, actually, before the company comes up, we're going to take this matter under advisement. So, if the company needs us to make a decision within a specific time period, you should include that in your comments when you're addressing the commission.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joe Michelle on behalf of BGE. First, I want to thank the Commission for expediting its consideration of BGE's request. Unfortunately, the comments that were filed in response to BGE's request misconstrues and mischaracterizes the nature of our request. A number of the comments refer to BGE's filing as a request to preclude community solar customers from participation in SCB. Nowhere in BGE's filing did we make that request. The petitioners who filed comments go as far as accusing BGE of fabricating a tension between these two policies, when in fact, any reasonable person reading HB 908 and the Commission's regulations on SCB would acknowledge that there is real tension between the two policies, and I hope to highlight that this morning. So first, let me start with what we believe is the reason or the cause for the tension between these two policies. The company submits that when the General Assembly was drafting and adopting HB 908, it simply did not have SCB in mind. And in fact, I think RISA and the petitioners acknowledged this fact. Nowhere in the bill is supplier consolidated billing mentioned at all. And so, the fact that supplier consolidated billing is not mentioned in the bill, and the fact that there are certain provisions and requirements in the bill that would be rendered impossible for the utilities to comply with, those two reasons is what leads BG to believe that the General Assembly did not contemplate community solar interacting and working in conjunction with SCB. And because of this tension and this conflict, BG thought it appropriate to seek Commission direction before trying to implement SCB by the December 2024 deadline. So let me explain that first point. All the parties agree that supplier consolidated billing is not expressly mentioned in HB 908. But the bill does, however, discuss consolidated billing. And even better, the bill defines consolidated billing. And if the commissioners could take a look at Section A5, Roman numeral 1 of House Bill 908, it reads that consolidated billing means a payment mechanism that requires an electric company to, at the request of a subscriber organization or subscription coordinator, to include the monthly subscription charge of a subscriber organization or subscription coordinator on the monthly bills rendered by the electric company for electric service and supply to subscribers. With this definition in mind, consider the following scenario. A subscriber organization decides that it wants to use consolidated billing as defined in HB 908. And that same subscriber organization is serving a customer that is enrolled with a supplier that offers SCB. The question becomes, who is responsible for issuing that customer's bill? HB 908 says once the supplier organization or the subscriber organization asks BGE to include its charges on BGE's bill, BGE is then responsible for issuing those bills. But the Commission's SCB regulations would answer the question differently. It would say that the suppliers are responsible for issuing that customer's bills. This isn't tension that BGE is fabricating. This is reasonable. A reasonable reader would see that there is real tension between these two policies. And that is the reason for BGE's request for direction from the Commission and seeking guidance on how to deal with these scenarios. So several parties spend considerable time in their comments arguing that HB 908 does not contain any provision explicitly barring community solar customers from participating in SCB. But that was never BGE's point. The point was simply that in drafting and adopting HB 908, the General Assembly did not have SCB in mind. This wasn't some intentional act that we're suggesting the General Assembly took to preclude community solar customers from participating in SCB. The second point that leads BGE to that conclusion is the fact that HB 908 was drafted in such a way that makes some of the requirements impossible to fulfill if a community solar customer is permitted to enroll in SCB. House Bill 908 requires all electric companies to report billing and crediting errors to the Commission on a regular basis. It also requires the utilities to apply community solar credits to the monthly amount due rather than the underlying balance for customers who are on budget billing. And it also requires all electric companies to show applied and bank credits on each bill rendered to a subscriber. Again, any reasonable person reading these requirements would come to the conclusion that BGE could not comply with these requirements if it is not responsible for rendering those bills. No other party offers any viable solution to these conflicts. So I'll briefly address the proposals of the parties who even dared to try to reconcile these conflicts. So OPC states that the information required to be exchanged under the Commission SCB regulations will make it possible for utilities to access data needed to report billing and crediting errors to the Commission. Simply put, OPC is wrong. First, the Commission's SCB regulations do not require suppliers to send to utilities the supplier's billing and crediting errors. Second, requiring utilities to report suppliers' billing and crediting errors would place the utilities in the role of policing suppliers. And this is nowhere mentioned in HB 908. OPC offers no solution for the other two requirements, namely, how can utilities ensure that community solar credits are applied to the monthly amount rather than the underlying balance for customers who are enrolled in budget billing, or ensure that all customers' bills showed applied and bank credits if, again, BGE is not actually issuing those bills. Now, the suggestion that RESA and the petitioners offer is no better. And that suggestion is that the requirements specified in HB 908 would not apply if a community solar customer with a supplier offering SCB was also subscribed to community solar. Put differently, if a community solar enrolled in SCB, somehow the requirements that are specified in HB 908 no longer apply to the utilities. First, this reading directly contradicts the definition of consolidated billing in the statute. Because consolidated billing as defined in HB 908 says the subscriber organization or the subscription coordinator gets to decide if it wants to have its bills issued by BGE. And once a subscription coordinator or subscriber organization makes that request of BGE, the requirements of HB 908 go into effect. And so if subsequently a customer enrolls in SCB, you have this tension between HB 908 saying that BGE must render the customer's bill, and again, the Commission's regulations on SCB saying that suppliers have the right to render those bills. Second, RESA and the petitioners are attempting essentially to rewrite the statute to include an exception to the requirements that I specified, when in fact HB 908 does not contain any exception to those requirements. So if you take a look at section G1 in HB 908, you notice that Roman numeral 1, which says that the Commission has to implement consolidated billing as part of community solar, it is a separate and distinct requirement from all of the requirements that follow. Let me put that a little differently. Suppliers and RESA are reading this provision as if the requirements, the billing requirements, the reporting requirements that are specified in section G1 only apply under consolidated billing. And that simply is incorrect, right? Because the requirements, the billing requirements and the reporting requirements are not subsections of Roman numeral 1, which says the Commission has to implement consolidated billing. If those requirements that apply to the utilities were a subsection of Roman numeral 1, then you could read the statute to say if Roman numeral 1 doesn't apply, then the requirements beneath Roman numeral 1 doesn't apply. But if you take a quick look at section G1, you'll see that the requirement for the Commission to implement consolidated billing and the subsequent requirements for the utilities to implement certain billing requirements and reporting requirements are separate and distinct. And therefore, the exception that RESA and petitioners are proposing is not in keeping with the plain language of the bill. RESA and petitioners maintain that if the Commission decides that community solar customers may have their bills issued by suppliers under SCB, suppliers would not be obligated to comply with the billing and reporting requirements contained in HB 908. And simply put, suppliers are looking to have their cake and eat it too. Because on one hand, they want to offer consolidated billing to community solar customers, even though HB 908 does not expressly state that they can. But on the other hand, suppliers say that they don't have to comply with the requirements that the General Assembly included to ensure the accuracy of customers' bills. In HB 908, the General Assembly demonstrated a clear intent to regulate the bills that community solar customers get. But RESA and petitioners want you to believe that the General Assembly was only concerned about bills issued by the utilities. The General Assembly didn't have any concerns about the accuracy of suppliers' bills. The General Assembly was not concerned with having suppliers submit reports and billing errors to the Commission. If the Commission adopts this reading of HB 908, the commission would in effect be setting up two standards, two billing standards for community solar customers in Maryland. One by which the utilities have to meet the requirements of HB 908, and the suppliers don't have to pay attention to them. So for those reasons, these are the tensions and the issues, the questions that BGE and frankly the work groups have been grappling with, and this is the basis of BGE's request to the commission. And briefly, I'll touch on the second issue in BGE's filing, and that was direction on whether or not BGE can continue its current practice of applying community solar credits to gas charges. So as a preliminary matter, BGE's billing system was not specifically created or formatted for community solar, right? And so community solar credits in BGE's billing system are treated as any other billing credit. So for example, if for whatever reason a customer overpaid, sent BGE more money than it was required to in a particular month, BGE would apply the difference as a credit on the customer's next bill. And so community solar credits, the way it works is that those credits are first applied to the customer's electric bill. But if the customer is a dual commodity customer, anything that is left over after the credits are applied to the customer's electric bill would get applied to any other charge on that customer's bill, whether it be gas, whether it be outdoor lighting, you name it. It would be applied to those charges in the order that those charges were posted to the bill. That's how BGE's billing system treats all credits, and community solar credits are no different. Now, if the commission decides that, we don't like that and BGE shouldn't do that, that's why we're here, for direction in terms of implementing SCB and going forward and treating these credits. We want the commission's input on how those credits should be treated. But I think the commission should bear in mind that if the commission were to decide that BGE's practice of allowing community solar credits to be applied to any charges on the customer's bill, you could in fact have a situation, and in fact this is often the case, where a customer has a bank of community solar credits available to it, and it has an outstanding, say, gas charge on their bill, and that customer is actually facing termination for their gas service. And the customer has a bank of credits that they could use to apply and satisfy the balance on their gas bill. And if the commission were to say, no, BG, you can't use the community solar credits to satisfy the gas charges, you could in fact have a situation where a customer is sitting there with money in their account that could satisfy this bill, but they can't use it. And I just submit to the commission that I simply don't think that that is what the General Assembly had in mind in developing these policies. And frankly put, I think if we take a customer-centric view of this problem and simply ask, if you were a customer, what would you want? I think we would all agree that if we have a bank of credits that's available and the goal is to reduce customers' monthly bills, why in the world would we deny the customer the right to use those credits to satisfy the existing charges? So I thank the commission for its time and listening to the company's presentation, and I have a number of SMEs with me this morning. We're available for questions.
So, questions for the company. Commissioner Schlesman.
Good morning, Mr. Michelle.
Good morning.
So that I understand, your argument is that HB 908 does not allow community solar customers to participate in SCB. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's not. To be clear, I don't know if I can be any clearer. We are not suggesting that the General Assembly, in passing HB 908, sought to preclude community solar customers from participating in SCB. We are again seeking the Commission's direction, and we're simply highlighting what we see as the tension between these two policies and say we have to find some way to reconcile.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
The
that. But
policy.
when you use words like impossible, that says to me that it cannot happen. So
Yeah.
you know, if you said it was difficult, I can appreciate that. You know, as a lawyer, we always are faced with difficult challenges. When you say that it's impossible, then that suggests to me that you think that community solar participants cannot participate in SCB.
Yeah, that is certainly a logical conclusion in the
No, but
company's reading.
It's not just a logical conclusion, that's the company's conclusion.
I mean, if you choose to characterize it that way, the company could have, in fact, Commissioner Suchman, filed a request exactly stating that, saying to the Commission, we request that the Commission find that HB 908 and SCB is not compatible.
Oh, okay.
We're here this morning asking for the Commission's direction because
No, I appreciate
the
that,
work
but
group couldn't reach a consensus.
right, but the concern I have is that the direction, when you're asking for clarification, it provides us perhaps with several avenues, but you seem to be offering only one avenue, which is that community solar cannot participate in SCB.
That is the only solution that we have come up with to date without offending the provisions of HB 908.
Okay, so let's get to the offending provision. So as I understand what you're arguing, you have reporting requirements that are contained in the statute that are reporting requirements that the onus is on you to do the reporting, and that the statute wouldn't allow for other entities other than the utility to do the reporting. Is that what you're?
That's only one aspect. That's only one requirement, right? To be clear, in addition to the reporting requirements, HB 908 provides certain requirements for how those bills should be calculated, what should be included on them. Those are also requirements that would be rendered impossible if the utilities were not actually issuing the bill. I mean, think about it. If the utilities were held to these requirements, even though the supplier is sending out the bills, I mean, how could the Commission hold the utilities responsible for what suppliers are doing with their bills?
Okay, I'm assuming we're going to hear from the suppliers this morning, so I would like the suppliers to address that very point.
You and I both.
Of why it would be impossible for suppliers to meet these conditions.
Well, Commissioner Sussman, to be clear, suppliers are saying that they would not be responsible for meeting these conditions. If they are sending out the bills, their reading of HB 908 says suppliers are nowhere mentioned in HB 908. So these requirements only apply to the utilities.
And you're saying that without the information, you could not meet the reporting requirements.
Precisely, or ensure that the bills are sent out in a particular way as required by HB
Okay,
908.
and I'm assuming RISA is going to come up in. Okay, so that's great. In terms of the second piece of your arguments relating to applying the credits to any gas usage, how do you deal with net metering? If you have a net metering customer that has a net metering credit, and that customer is a dual use customer, is electric and gas, and they have a credit at the end of the year, which I understand now can be used in subsequent years. In that instance, you're not forced to to apply that credit to the gas piece. Is that correct?
So I've gone 30 minutes without needing any SMEs, and I think this is where my expertise.
Yeah, well, they get paid, so that's just for them to.
And so, Commissioner Stutzman, just so I understand your question again, would you mind repeating it?
Yeah, so I have the sense from your argument that there are going to be these credits that are going to just sit unused, and wouldn't it be a good thing to be able to have them take advantage of them and apply it to the gas side? And I'm just wondering if there are other examples of credits, and so I just thought of net metering, but it could be any other credits that are applicable to electricity usage that don't apply to the gas side. So,
Good morning. I can speak to the net metering question.
thank you. And can you introduce yourself?
I am Stacy Ono. I am the manager for community solar at Baltimore Gas and Electric. So basically for net metering, it works a little bit differently. The customers only get $1 credit at the annual true-up that's done every April if they sign up for the annual true-up. As of right now, they have a choice between the annual true-up or indefinite accrual of excess generation. So other than the annual true-up, a net metering customer wouldn't get $1 credit. And that's different from the way that BGE handles community solar. So for community solar, according to the Public Utilities article that applies to community solar, the electric company makes a choice between a kilowatt-hour reduction monthly or the application of $1 credit to the subscriber's bill. And BGE chose to go with the $1 credit every month. And that's not the case for net metering. For net metering, we don't have that choice.
Right, but it's an accounting choice. You could do this differently.
So, Commissioner Tuchman, I now understand the difference between the two. I think what Ms. Ono was explaining is that with community solar, you're having this calculation and this crediting being done on a monthly basis, right? With net metering, it's not done on that basis. So you're not faced with the decision of, do I apply these credits every month to the customer's electric charges or gas charges? And to be clear, again, the way that BGE calculates these credits, we are first applying the credits to the electric charges. It's just, if for whatever reason there is excess credits or money, dollar amounts, left over after the customer's electric bill has been satisfied, then those credits get applied to any other charges that are on the customer's bill in the order in which they hit the customer's
Right, but
bill.
it sounds like it's an accounting issue. You can simply take whatever is left over and just apply it to. I had the sense that you were sort of suggesting that you can't do this, and I guess that's my
No.
question. Do you have the ability to have the credit simply applied to the electricity portion of the bill?
Oh, absolutely. It would require us to, develop the IT systems in order to do that, but
Okay,
certainly it's not an impossibility.
And how onerous a task would that be?
That I don't know, and I think part of
Do you have anybody here that can
yeah,
answer that
well,
question?
yes, but and I've saw.
No, and I'm not actually being flip with that. I actually
understand.
because it is one of your two arguments.
Yeah.
And we're hearing from others suggesting that it should only be applied to the electricity piece of it. If it's a task that would involve spending millions of dollars, we clearly need to know that before rendering a
Absolutely,
decision.
and my response to that question, Commissioner Suchman, was not to avoid the question. I've actually already asked our SMEs this question. The problem is, without knowing what EDI transactions or the details of what the system should consist of, it's essentially impossible to come up with an accurate estimate of how much this would cost without knowing those details.
Is there any way, I would hate for us to ask you to do something that would be an incredibly onerous and costly endeavor. And so is there a way that you can provide us information so that we can help in our deliberation? As the chair said, we are going to take this under advisement. So in our deliberation, if you can get us a back of the envelope, we're not asking for detailed, but to just give us a sense of what would be involved in the process and how onerous a task would it be, and how many persons would it involve, on a monthly basis to do the calculations? Because if it's something that is quite onerous, then we may have to think about something else. But if it's a very easy process, then that also enters into the calculus.
Understood.
So, Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And let's see, I know we have other parties we want to hear from, but just clarification, I think, Commissioner, you asked kind of the areas where I wanted to delve into. First of all, I just want to understand, as you're requesting information, or I'm sorry, direction from the Commission, are these issues all issues that you believe can be handled just with direction or with regulation, or do you see something that needs to go back to the legislature for clarification?
Commissioner Richard, I'm glad you asked that question, because as I pondered over this morning at, say, 2 a.m., that is in fact the conclusion that I came to, that this is a legislative issue, and what I read the other parties to be asking the Commission to do to reconcile these tensions is essentially to rewrite the bill. And obviously that is not within the Commission's purview. So
Okay,
that
you're
is
talking
my-
about HB 908,
908
specifically. Okay, and so just the fact that it does say that electricity suppliers, electricity suppliers can also be customers of community solar generating systems. That's not clear enough. That
No.
at least that was the intent of the legislature to try to cover all these customer classes.
So, Commissioner Richard, here's why I think that doesn't carry the day, right? Because if the Commission were to decide that a community solar customer could not partake in an SCB, that doesn't necessarily mean that the customer cannot be receiving their commodity from a supplier. Right? Today, we have situations where a customer is receiving their supply from a supplier, and we have dual billing. Right? So in that situation, the supplier is not issuing the customer's bill, and so one way to read that provision is to say a customer could be enrolled in dual billing, receive their commodity from a supplier, but BGE is still responsible for calculating the customer's community solar credits and making sure that it complies with the requirements of HB 908.
Okay. There's also the, in statute 7511 going back to 2000, because you were saying something to the effect that, well, the legislature never contemplated this. I mean, isn't this the contemplations of the legislature, all of the statutes? And going back to, 2000, they did have a contemplation of competitive billing and billing services. So, I mean, when you kind of combine all this together, doesn't that provide an opportunity to, again, through regulation, try to, I guess, make all these things work? Because obviously, over time, this is a very dynamic process. I just have a hard time with you saying that the legislature never considered this when they clearly did, and they haven't changed this law yet, and I don't know if they will. And then they also specifically state in their bill, 908, that they intended for these customers to all be able to, again, coexist and participate in all the different programs.
Yeah, so Commissioner, I think taking a step back and thinking through how the commission's version of supplier consolidated billing came to be would be helpful. So HB 908 is legislation that was put forth and came out of the General Assembly. Supplier consolidated billing, as described in the commission's regs, was actually a creation of by the commission, and it sort of came to be pursuant to a commission order, right? So in terms of what we know today as supplier consolidated billing, the section of the Public Utilities Article 7511 that you reference, you will not find that in Section 511. What the Commission did in its order on page 12, and I can tell you the order number, it's Order 89116. If you take a look at page 12 of that order, what the Commission did, it said that given what's in Section 7511, we think that the General Assembly has given us authority in order to create SCB. But the PUA does not have what we know as supplier consolidated billing in the statute itself. So what the commission did, it said that we have the authority to do this pursuant to a provision in the PUA, but the PUA did not create supplier consolidated billing. It's a creation of commission order.
Okay, I don't really want to go down this path, but again, it was based on 511, and as you know, when we promulgate regulations, they do go to the legislature, and if we're way off, then they can send us back. So I don't think at this point I don't.
Yeah, so
I feel
commission.
like we've been told that somehow we went far along our field here with our. So, but that's not where you're. I'm just trying to understand what if we can guidance we can provide you to the work group, and what we can do with regulation, trying to make all these different policies that have evolved over time work, and then I'll want to hear from the other parties if they agree with BGE that at this point, we absolutely have to go back to the legislature. So I think that's all I'm trying to get to right now. Is what guidance can we give, and what can we hear from everybody to again provide the guidance we need. And I think it was largely answered, but I was interested again in this, how we carry out net metering, and the CSEGs, I think, is described as virtual net metering. So, I understand your desire on, the virtual net metering, that, well, maybe these credits, but, is this really an obstacle? Or can we just, make sure that virtual and net metering and net metering are treated in a similar manner, so that we can again overcome this obstacle that BGE seems to think exists.
Yeah, I wouldn't characterize it as an obstacle. Again, we're not saying that it is impossible for us to only apply community solar credits to the electric commodity. If that is what the commission thinks is best, we are happy and willing to comply with that.
Okay, yeah, because I always just thought it was. We looked at, the volumetric calculations, and then there are certain things that are on the bill, such as the customer charge, that were not offset. And I was surprised when I was reading this to find out that you were actually, subtracting, I guess, or looking at the gas part of the bill. So
Yeah,
that's something, I guess, very unique to BGE.
It is, because we're a dual commodity, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I just want to make sure we're not going to, create a problem for the whole program just because there's one unique issue with BGE that we need to deal with. And I think I'm hearing from you that this is not something that can't be resolved in the work group and with commission guidance. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think this is something that definitely, if the commission says, we don't want BGE customers to be able to use, community solar credits to offset gas charges, then we can change that practice. We just want commission direction.
Okay, I don't think I would word it that way, but anyway, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Barbe, any questions? Actually, none from me. So if you want to move to the.
Yeah, no, I want to hear the other witnesses.
Okay. All right. Fine. So there's no questions for me. So go ahead and move to the next.
Okay. Who we want to hear from? Well, maybe first, does staff have any responses to what you just heard from BGE? Did you have anything you'd like to?
Well,
to
I
say?
think that BGE did summarize that they are, there's no doubt they're using community solar credits for gas costs, and I think they also admitted that, or stated that when they use, that they do treat, think of this as net metering, but let me see if Mr. Vanderhayden has anything to add.
No.
No.
All right, Office of People's Counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Jacob Auslander on behalf of the Maryland Office of People's Counsel. We filed comments that generally track what staff and some of the other parties have filed on this matter. And, our comments boil down to two main areas. One is we take issue with the tension that Mr. Michel described in the statute. We think that under ordinary rules of statutory construction, both the changes to the community solar statute and the statute under which the Commission implemented supplier consolidated billing can be read in harmony. We'd also like to mention that it is not uncommon for the Commission to perform a gap-filling function. Many times the statutes that the General Assembly passes requires the Commission to engage in extensive refinements and modifications to make those policies applicable and capable of being carried out in the state. So with that in mind, I think the biggest the biggest point that Mr. Michel made that I think that the Commission should be aware of as it takes this matter under advisement is that BGE acknowledges that it's possible for it to implement supplier consolidated billing for community solar customers. And the question really becomes how can they do that? Staff has pointed out that there is currently underway an effort by the Technical Implementation Work Group to establish standards for governing the actual specific transmission of billing, payment, and other data required to implement supplier consolidated billing. As we pointed out in our comments, we believe that those mechanisms should be able to provide the information needed for utilities to provide the reporting that is required under the statute. Conversely, the Commission could, as it develops regulations for and implements these regulations, could require suppliers to make that reporting. So we don't believe that the tension that Mr. Michel and BGE have pointed out is insurmountable, and we believe that the Commission certainly has the authority and the ability to have both the Community Solar Statute and the Competitive Billing Statute, PUA 7-511, read in harmony, and we would ask you to do so. The second point that BGE has mentioned is that even though it might be possible to make the changes necessary to implement supplier consolidated billing for community solar customers, that it would be costly or so difficult that they might not be able to meet the implementation deadline. We would point out that supplier consolidated billing has been discussed and worked out in these work groups for some time, for many, many years. The regulations that are currently in COMAR require the utility to provide information regarding participation in community solar. So we believe that to some extent the Commission has already made a ruling on the issue of whether community solar subscribers can choose a supplier consolidated biller. And then going back to the statutory construction argument, I think for BGE's point to be countenanced here, the Commission would have to conclude that the General Assembly took the extraordinary step of barring community solar subscribers from participating in supplier consolidated billing, even though they didn't explicitly say that in the statute. And given that the supplier consolidated billing provisions were already on the books, we don't believe that that is a valid reading of the statute, and that the General Assembly would not have intended that without specifically saying so. So, our comments, I think, track staff's comments, pretty much identically, and we would ask you to conclude that supplier consolidated billing customers can be subscribers in a community solar facility, and to direct BGE to apply the community solar credits that it is applying a customer's bill to electric charges only, and not apply them to gas charges. We pointed out in our comments that only BGE, as a dual utility provider, would be in a position to even be able to apply community solar credits to non-electric charges on a customer's bill. And I can understand the position that Mr. Michel articulated today, that it would be perhaps seemingly unfair to have a customer have credits on their bill that they cannot apply to non-electric charges. And perhaps there could be circumstances where a customer might face termination of gas service because of their inability to apply those credits to outstanding gas charges. One point that I would make is that that is what exists in every other service area except for BGE. So if you are a Pepco customer and you have community solar credits, there's no mechanism to apply those community solar credits to gas charges that you might owe to Washington Gas. Paradoxically, only a supplier consolidated biller that is providing supplier consolidated billing service to a customer for both electric and gas charges in a service territory other than BGE would be in a position to perhaps apply community solar credits to non-electric charges. So we believe that staff's interpretation of the statute is correct, and that BGE should not be applying the community solar credits in the way that it's doing currently, and should do it essentially the same thing that they're doing for net energy, rooftop net energy metered customers to community solar subscribers.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm available for any questioning.
Thanks. All right, Mr. Chair.
So let me ask a process question. Mr. Alchandler, you've been in the work group trenches on retail supply issues for a number of years. Is this matter something that we should give the work group a shot at trying to resolve, or with some maybe direction and thoughts from us, or is this the type of issue that really needs to be decided by the commission at its outset?
So, Mr. Chairman, I would say that because this specific issue has been brought before the commission, that perhaps some decision should be made by the commission. But I would also say that there are going to be some implementation, some specifics of the implementation that will need to be worked out fully in further work group proceedings. And I would call the commission's attention to the fact that this topic was brought up by BGE and one of these technical implementation work groups. So to some extent, it has begun to be discussed in the work group, and as those EDI transactions are finalized, the questions that are vexing BGE should be able to be addressed.
Okay, so any of the commissioners, Commissioner Sussman?
Okay, so follow up on the chair's question. I'm trying to get a sense of how detailed we would need to be in an order. You were talking about ways in which you can, in the working group, sort of define the reporting responsibilities, and so. Which, frankly, I'd rather not get into the weeds on that, because I don't think we're in a really good position to know what it is that should be reported and how it should be reported. So I actually liked that you identified that as an issue that the working group can do, and that's great. But what would be helpful from the commission perspective of do we need to say more than we don't see that there's a conflict in including community solar in SCB, but then we direct the work group to identify the path forward in terms of reporting responsibilities?
Yeah, I think that the commission could certainly do that. I think that the reason that I mentioned that it might be helpful for the commission to give some direction is that there, for a number of the past work group sessions, this issue has been sort of hanging over, over the deliberations within the working group. And I think that a decision by the commission that resolves this tension that PGE believes exists between the statutes would be helpful in crystallizing the issues that the work group is seeking to address.
Okay, thank you.
So, any other questions from the for OPC?
None from me.
Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Okay. All right, Mr. Buellmans has come to the stand.
Thank you, Chair Hoover, Commissioners. David Bugelmans on behalf of the Coalition for Community Solar Access this morning. Thank you for allowing us to present this morning. As the trade organization representing community solar developers, wanted to maybe take a step back at the beginning of my comments to give some context to what we mean by consolidated billing for community solar. Under the community solar pilot program as it operates today, community solar projects have historically had to bill customers directly for subscription charges. So this has resulted in 2 bills being received by subscribers. There's one from the electric company for distribution and supply, and then one from the community solar project for subscription charges. This is known generally as dual billing. In lieu of this practice, House Bill 908 gives community solar projects under the permanent program the option of facilitating payment for subscription charges by subscribers directly through bills rendered for electric service. Well, HB 908 refers to this arrangement as consolidated billing. That's the term that's used. It really is a separate and distinct mechanism from the UCB and SCB procedures that have been the subject of this case. Obviously, there's some interaction when you talk about them, but they are different things. CCSA agrees generally with staff, OPC, and the suppliers that HB 908 does not prohibit community solar subscribers from using a competitive supplier offering SCB. What is true is that HB 908 requires electric companies to offer consolidated billing for subscription charges on electric company bills if requested by a project. So the legislature was clear that that is required. But there's a couple other situations that could arise. One situation that hasn't been discussed today is there is the possibility that a customer will be on an SCB supplier, but will be subscribed to a community solar project that is still doing dual billing. So in that case, the competitive supplier wouldn't be responsible for subscription charges and that payment through the bill. So the electric company wouldn't there's no conflict there. What's also clear from I think the comments of the suppliers, they'll speak in a second, but it seems that there is interest from that group for allowing suppliers that are offering SCB functions to actually facilitate payment of subscription charges. So I think what that means is, look at the statute, this is not prohibited. There's no prohibition in law that prohibits community solar subscribers from participating in SCB. And there's a couple things. There's the SCB work group that's going on. There's also a separate process, at least so far it's been separate, to implement the community solar permanent program. There is a second rulemaking that will need to occur that needs to wrap up by January 1st, 2026. Part of what the statute says for that is that the mechanism for consolidated billing for community solar credits needs to be included in that second rulemaking phase. In CCSA's comments, we recommended that the commission send that issue to the net metering working group. Hearing the discussion today, I think it's clear that at least some of these issues probably will need to be considered by the SCB work group just from an implementation perspective. So I think that's something that needs to be sorted out and explicitly stated by the commission. Again, going back to our comments, we do recommend that the commission provide direction today that HB 908 does not prohibit community solar subscribers from using SCB, and then provide explicit direction to whichever work group or combination is appropriate to consider how to implement that to the extent possible. One final point I want to raise is CCSA is very concerned with BGE's proposal that the commission allow the utility to, I think the term they use is retain community solar bill credits. if the commission allows SCB participation. This goes to some of the questions that we heard from the bench about net metering and trying to ensure that these projects, these community solar projects, from a subscriber perspective, are treated similar to net metering. HB 908 is clear that for the permanent program, the commission must require the utilities to offer a credit to subscribers that's effectively a full retail credit similar to net metering. So it's basically any volumetric charge on the electric bill of the customer needs to be included in the credit value. So it's very clear they're trying to make this as analogous as possible to rooftop net metering. And to the extent that the utility would be able to retain bill credits and only apply those credits against the distribution portion of the bill, and not the supply portion of the bill, that would be departing from that concept. So we do request in our comments for the commission to provide explicit direction on that, to make sure that if this is implemented, that customers are able to enjoy the full required value of the credits, and that it's applied to a portion of the bill that allows them to utilize all the credit value every month. With that, we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
So, any questions? Commissioner Schlesman.
Good morning, Mr. Bugmans. I actually, well, I guess, I was going to ask you another question, but first, is there a question about applying the credits to the commodity aspect? Because I'm hoping that the utility is not proposing that it only be applied to the distribution piece.
That's the way I read their comments.
Okay.
But they're here, so they can correct me if I'm wrong. But the idea would be if the commission allows SCB participation or customers to be on SCB, that those customers, the credits would only be applied against the distribution portion of the bill, so not commodity. That's what I read, but.
I would like to have clarity there. That's the first I'm hearing of it. Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate to bring Mr. Michel back up?
Well, I think what I want to do is, after we hear
Okay.
from everybody, I was going to bring him back up
That's fine.
to respond to.
So don't go
briefly.
anywhere.
So, Mr. Michel, if you can kind of take notes of
That's
your
fine. Okay.
response, and we'll
So
go ahead.
I actually have more of an observation and a question going both to your group and to Risa as well. I'm assuming you're aware that the commission has opened a docket for consideration of mechanisms for low and moderate income customers, docket PC 59. And in reading the proposals here, it struck me that better understanding how we can utilize community solar to reach those customers is just critical to making sure that those customers can enjoy affordable, reliable electricity. And I was struck that your members didn't submit any comments in the proceeding, and so we had initial comments that came in. Reply comments, I believe, are due at the end of February, and I encourage you, please, to submit comments. I can't help but think that community solar could end up being one of the keys to getting the low and moderate income customers to be able to enjoy the benefits of sustainable and affordable electricity. And then anybody else who's here, who's representing clients that have an interest in this or could have an interest, I invite you to submit reply comments. We're going to be, I actually have my comments here, and I'm going to be reading them on a train on Friday. And so I'm looking forward with great interest to seeing what the reply comments will be, so I'm encouraging submission of those as well. So thank you.
So,
Yeah, maybe just, Mr. Chairman, just one question.
Mr. Richard, go ahead. Sure.
Just so I'm clear on what you're requesting for from the commission for direction. At this point, has there been discussion about how CSEGs would work with both a possible community, retail consolidated biller and the, so it's analogous to how you work now with the utilities? Is that something that's already under discussion, or?
There has been some, and I only participate, at least to date, in the net metering working group. There has been some discussion. What's clear to me is there has been, I mean, this is my impression, that the two groups are siloed. And one thing that's going to need to happen is there's going to need to be some cross discussion between the two groups. And I think it's really important for the commission to sort that out. You know, with respect to the community solar implementation of the permanent program, there are two rulemakings, right? The first one, staff, I think, is getting close to being able to submit those regs. That's sort of everything except billing. And so the billing phase hasn't really started yet. That will start, I think, soon. And it's an opportunity to incorporate these issues as part of that, or to kind of join them together. There's going to need to be cross discussion between the two groups to make this work.
Okay, no, I appreciate as one commissioner that you're bringing that to our attention, and I just would observe, obviously, just one commissioner, so I can't direct here, but I would hope that maybe staff, you're hearing that as well, and that we can maybe get things, at least a discussion started, so we can be clear as a commission what kind of guidance we would need, because that does seem like something that would be important to get moving. So just an observation.
Yes, Your Honor, I'm told that is something that is planned and will be done. There's one little detail that needs to be ironed out in the community solar regulation.
Yeah, and given the comments, if there are in fact some silos or things that need to be considered in multiple work groups, maybe that's something also staff could advise the commission so that we can help make sure that this is all an efficient and smooth process, and we can get it done in the time frame that we're supposed to get it done. So,
That's our goal.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any other questions from the commissioners? None for me, so go ahead and move to the next party.
Okay. Mr. Green is here from RISA.
Thanks. Good morning, Brian Green for the petitioners and for RISA. So, I don't know if you guys can hear me. So first of all, I'm not going to repeat everything, but I do want to acknowledge that staff, I fundamentally agree with what you've heard today from staff, from OPC, and from CCSA, as well as in their written comments. I think they're very consistent with those filed by the petitioners and separately from RISA. I will touch on a few things to elaborate on a few things that, I found it interesting that counsel for BG consistently went after the petitioners and RISA when we're all in agreement here. The only one on the outside looking in is BGE's apparent interpretation / non-interpretation of 306.2. As far as the reporting requirements go, in other words, they say that there's tension, but then the only reason there's tension is because they're creating it. In the working groups and in the discussions and in the comments that the pre-filed comments for today, there's no tension. The only one that sees a tension is BGE. So, and in seeking to highlight what that tension is, they've only told you what they can't do. And they haven't told you what they can do or how it can be worked out in a working group once we get appropriate guidance from the commission. With respect to the reporting requirements, Commissioner Suchman, that what we said in our comments, it remains true today. The reporting requirements that are in 7-306.2 pertain to a utility that utilizes consolidated billing for community solar. That's what, if they don't, for the bills that they send out, they have reporting requirements for those. The SCB reporting requirements, the bulk of which can be found in 20.53.05.13, where the suppliers and the utilities have reporting requirements for the bills that suppliers send out for SCB. And then the utilities have their own reporting requirements with respect, I think, to how many come and go and so forth. Always in a working group, when we talk about reporting requirements, we talk about who has the information that can be reported, right? So for SCB, for example, there's a lot of those reporting requirements that you'll see in the COMAR. Only the suppliers would have that information, so it was their responsibility to report it to the commission or to staff or to, I think, to OPC if they asked for it. Similarly, there is information that utilities will have about the SCB program in general, right, involving all suppliers. So the utilities have to report that information. One supplier who does SCB is only going to have information on its bills. It's not going to have information on its competitors' bills. So similarly here in 306.2, the reporting requirements are for the bills that the utility sends out under that section of the statute. And so therefore we don't see any tension, nor do we see it as a reason that the statute would somehow preclude a community solar participant from participating in the SCB program. The one thing that just kept striking me is one thing that the petitioners tried to do when we did our comments was, to really highlight how good of a job the commission has done creating this SCB program. This is a petition that the petitioners filed in September of 2017. There was a full-day hearing here at the commission. It was followed by an order that set up a rulemaking. For 2 years, the working group met, I think, every Thursday afternoon for 2 hours at least to create regulations. We had a 5-day hearing on the regulations. And now we're in the implementation phase, and we're coming down the home stretch. And I believe staff pointed out this is the only issue that we're aware of that's come up. And we have the EDI working group on the electric side that's like a subgroup. And when they have larger policy issues, they come up to the SCB working group. And so we don't meet regularly. I'm not involved in the implementation details, but the SCB working group, I do call into those. And the problem is, and this gets into my next point, what do we want the commission to do today? We actually see it, I think staff highlighted it as 2 issues. We see it a little bit differently. We see a third issue, and we put that in the petitioner's comments. The problem is that before we can talk implementation, we can't, the SCB working group has not been able to get past these big policy threshold issues. And so the legal issue of whether, whether 7-306.2 precludes community solar customers from participating in SCB. We think there's a clear answer to that. Everyone agrees that there's a clear answer to that, except BGE, which, on the one hand says that they don't know, so they're asking for guidance. I'll take them at their word for that, but we think it's a clear answer, and we need the commission to tell us that. And then second, the second issue is with respect to can they apply the credits to something other than the electricity charges? And staff and OPC and CCSA and the suppliers are all on the same page that we're talking about a full retail credit. I think staff and CCSA did a really nice job in their written comments walking the commission through the statutory language that mandates a full retail credit. So we see a third issue, and this is, Commissioner Suchman, you touched on it, and so did Counsel for CCSA. What BGE has proposed in I think it's on page 2 of its initial request, is that for SCB customers who are community solar, BGE would apply the credit to the distribution or the utility charge on the bill, but retain the commodity portion of the credit and we presume bank it and then apply that as you go. But that's going to be quite frankly, a terrible customer experience, and it's going to be, I found it a little bit, very much inconsistent that on the one hand, BGE says we have to apply it to natural gas because how awful would it be if a customer had a credit and we could apply that to the bill, right? But then for SCB customers, they want to do just that, right? They want to hold the commodity portion, and even though the customer still has a supply portion of the bill that they have to pay to the supplier. So, and I tried to highlight in the petitioner's written comments, well, how much we're talking about here. As I understand BG's current tariff, we're talking about roughly a 16-cent credit. And I'll just round numbers. 5 cents of that goes to the distribution, 11 cents goes to the supply portion. So for an SCB customer, if we had SCB in place today, who is a community solar customer, BG would retain 11 cents per kilowatt hour, which, for a 1,000 kilowatt hour customer, they're going to retain $11. That's but yet the customer still has a supply component of the bill to pay to the supplier. There needs to be a way in the implementation and in the working group to figure out how to apply those credits to the supply portion of an SCB customer's bill. So those are the three asks that we have for the commission on the legal issue, on the full retail credit issue, and then not allowing BGE to only apply the distribution credit to SCB customers. So thank you. I'm available for questions.
So, any questions for the suppliers? Commissioner Sushman.
So, Mr. Green, just so I'm clear, has this issue about not applying the commodity or the credit to the commodity portion come up in the conversations that have been going on in the working group? Do you know?
Yes.
They have been
in
going.
the SCB working group, the bigger the broader, bigger
Yes.
working group.
Yeah, this issue has come up.
It has come up a few times.
Okay.
And most recently, I want to say in the last meeting we had about a month ago, we talked for an hour, and this issue was right there, front and center. All the issues we're talking about today.
Right.
And we were plotting out a course on what do we need to go to the commission for. At least that my suggestion to the working group was, what do we need to go to the commission for? Let's highlight the issues or the questions to put before the commission, and let's get the guidance now, because in the past, frankly, I don't want to say we've been admonished, but it has been suggested to us from the commission that we not wait so long to get guidance from the commission on issues. And
Okay,
so
and
we were pushing in the working group, some of us, to let's get these issues before the commission now.
Okay, and for net metering, they don't take just the distribution piece of it. It's the net metering applies to all aspects of usage.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
I'm not as close to net metering as I am these other issues, but
Yeah, I guess I'm just musing. Okay, that's all I have.
So, any other questions for the suppliers?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think just so I get a clarification or a better understanding. So, is it the position of the suppliers for consolidated suppliers billing? Would you see there be a similar reporting requirement on how you're handling CSEG billing if you were to go and provide that service that's currently applicable to the utilities?
the commission, as Mr. Auslander so aptly put it, can fill in the gaps. And if the commission
Okay.
wants additional reporting on that issue from SCB suppliers, they can certainly ask for it, and I would hope that the SCB supplier would provide the information.
Okay, yeah, and that's what my understanding is. This is primarily, again, to ensure the accuracy for the CSEGs and for the customers of CSEGs, so that there would be no objection then by the retail
Absolutely.
suppliers.
In fact, one of the points we made during the rulemaking is that, and in the working groups, is that we want to see the SCB program flourish and be an example for all deregulated markets. And so the only way to do that is to be able to provide all the information from all suppliers to the commission so that you can monitor the program and gauge its success and make improvements as we go forward. So if there is information on the customers that are being served, and there's, especially as it relates to other statutory and regulated programs, then the suppliers will absolutely provide it.
Fantastic. That's really good to hear. I'm glad to hear the retail suppliers support that kind of a similar requirement. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Your Honor.
So, any
I-
questions for the suppliers?
Staff was wanting to be heard,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Just 3 minutes. Your Honor, first of all, with regard to necessity of an order. I think we do need an order, it's a pointed order. Other parties have stated what should be in there, and we agree with them. And I also have Mr. Zhang, who oversees the technical working group for SEB, and Mr. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Michael Jang on behalf of staff. So, in response to your question, Commissioner Sussman, so the technical group has proposals as to how to fully pass on the community solar credit to both include the distribution and the commodity portion. So that is in place. We were just waiting to see what the commission decision on this issue would be before we could fully implement that plan.
Mr. Zhang, do you need an order from us to clarify that we want to see both the commodity and the distribution portion get the value of the credit? Is that that something that?
That would definitely help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And also for the net metering working group, Phil Vanderhaden.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. To answer the question about what we need from you at this point to go forward, it would be very helpful, I believe, to our working group process if the Commission gives some pretty straightforward yes/no questions on the 2 points that were asked here. So number one, is it possible for SCB and community solar to coexist if there's a supplier bill involved? There's going to be a lot of technical things that are going to be considered. So I think it's very helpful if it's made clear that the working group will have the opportunity to sort of solve that technically, including all of the reporting issues, as has been mentioned thus far. So I think just without attempting to provide a lot of detail, it will be very helpful to the process to say, okay, you should go forward and design a system where a customer can be on both SCB and have a community solar subscription, and sort of leave it at that without trying to get into a lot of details. Because then we can go forward and design that system with the net metering working group and working with the folks in the SCB working group. And I think that would be particularly helpful. On the second issue as to how BG&E should allocate credits, I think you have raised both of you have and the members of the commission, there is a sort of an inherent similarity, if not being identical, between virtual net metering for community solar and standard rooftop net metering. I think it would be very helpful if we make it clear that those two forms of net metering should be treated the same way, which is to say that the kilowatt hour production by a community solar facility should only be applied to reduce the energy, the electrical energy specifically, on a customer's bill. And that could be done in two ways, either by making an adjustment to the meter reading, as is done by Potomac Edison, but not done by the other three utilities, or specifically converting that into its equivalent full retail dollar credit, but applying that solely to the electrical usage in kilowatt hours, not to monthly charges, not to gas charges, not to private area lighting charges or anything else. If you will help us tremendously by making your decision on that particular issue, but in particular, if you happen to decide that those two should be identical, virtual net metering and net metering, that will be, I think, greatly assist in the technical design. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure, go ahead, Commissioner Barbe.
For staff. So just to be clear, your position is that if a solar credit to allow a solar credit to be applied to a natural gas charge, that would require a legislative act.
I don't think we put that position in our comments, but as the law stands today, we do not believe that these credits could be applied to gas.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
So, any other parties want to speak on this?
Mr. Chair, no one is standing.
Okay, so why don't we bring the company back up, and I just asked them to respond if they feel necessary to any specific things they've heard from any of the other parties on some of the technical issues.
Thank you, Chair Hoover. I won't belabor the point. I think I want to simply first circle back to Commissioner Hoover, or Chair Hoover rather. You asked a question at the start of our comments. You asked for a timeline by which we would need a commission decision. So I'm told that if the commission were to decide that BGE could not continue applying community solar credits to gas charges, that would actually require a whole IT project in and of itself. Okay, so the December 31, 2024 implementation deadline for SCB would just be out the window. It just wouldn't be possible. And in terms of what that would cost, Commissioner Suchman made the bench request. We'll try to crunch some numbers to get that to you. But just in terms of the timeline, we're talking about a reworking. It's an IT project in and of itself that doesn't just affect community solar. It affects BGE entire billing system. Mr. Green mentioned, I counted 3 times where he mentioned that BGE stands alone in its concerns. And I frankly find that disingenuous because Mr. Green has taken part in these work group meetings and have heard these concerns raised by the other utilities as well. In fact, in this very docket, in response to BGE's filing, PE issued its own comments saying that it shares the same concerns with respect to the reading of HB 908. Mr. Green is well aware that PHI also shares the same concern. So I think the commission should be made aware of that fact, that although BGE was the only party that was willing to take action and raise these concerns with the commission, we don't stand alone with respect to those concerns. And that's all I have. If there's
Okay,
any questions.
I think
Just
we
one-
appreciate
Mr.
the
Chair,
significance of
just-
the problem. So.
One other question, and that was the issue that Mr. Green raised about the application of the credits. That his concern was that the credits would only be applied to the distribution portion of the bill and not the commodity portion of the bill.
Yeah, Commissioner Sussman, frankly, that is simply a red herring because the only reason why BGE proposed that solution in its filing was, and again, all of these options were presented by BGE to the work groups, right? And that option was suggested as a way to allow for the utilities to meet, or BGE rather, to meet the implementation deadline. Because again, if we have to revamp the entire billing system, the December 31, 2024 deadline is just not feasible.
Oh, okay, but separate and apart from the challenges of dealing with the billing system.
The issue it's not.
You are not
question.
proposing
No.
that, so the company is fine with having the credits apply both to the distribution piece
Yes.
and the commodity. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions for me?
No, I think we're good. So, all right. So we will take this matter under advisement and contemplate everything we've heard today and get back to folks.
Mr. Chair, the next item on today's administrative agenda is from Baltimore Gas and Electric Company. It's revised electric and gas tariff pages, proposed revisions to supplement 709 to MDE-6 and supplement 503 to MDG-9.
Good morning. Again, Chair Hoover and members of the commission, Annette Garofalo. I am appearing.
I'm having difficulty here.
Yeah, actually,
I'm having difficulty.
certainly.
we actually need staff to either move a little closer to the mic or speak up because those of us.
I'll try speaking up.
remote
I'm
thing
pretty
is-
close. I don't think I can get closer.
Okay, that's actually a lot better. So go ahead.
So today we have we'll have comments that they'll be delivered by David Hoppeck. But I have a number of people here who are available to answer questions you might have. The Accounting Investigations Division and the Gas and Telecommunications Division.
All right. Thank you, Annette. Good morning, Chair Hoover and members of the Commission. David Hoppock on behalf of staff. Baltimore Gas and Electric made its compliance filing in case number 9692, BGE's second MYP on January 2nd, 2024. As explained in staff's supplemental comments, after this item was postponed to the instant administrative meeting, staff met with BGE and OPC regarding BGE's compliance filing. As a result of this meeting, staff, BGE, and OPC agreed to recommend adoption of BGE's Rate Year 1 electric and gas distribution rates as proposed by BGE in its compliance filing. Regarding BGE proposed reconciliation rates recovered through Electric Rider 16 and Gas Rider 15 MYP adjustment, staff, BGE, and OPC agreed to recommend implementation of BGE's proposed reconciliation rates from March 1, 2024 through February 28, 2025, which requires a tariff revision to alter the effective date of the reconciliation rates. Regarding Rate Year 2 and Rate Year 3 rates, staff, BGE, and OPC agreed that BGE would meet with staff, OPC, and other interested parties and file within 60 days of this administrative meeting for approval of Rate Year 2 and Rate Year 3 rates. Staff recommends that the Commission, 1, accept BGE's proposed Rate Year 1 distribution rates, 2, adopt BGE's proposed reconciliation rates effective from March 1, 2024 through February 28, 2025, 3, accept BGE's new tariff provisions with the exception of Gas Rider 16 tariff and electric and gas reconciliation riders. 4, require that BGE make a clean tariff filing with the Gas Rider 16 maximum charge set to 0 for all customer classes and updated effective dates for Electric Rider 16 and Gas Rider 15 reconciliation rates. And 5, require BGE to meet with staff, OPC, and other interested parties regarding Rate Year 2 and Rate Year 3 distribution rates, and file a revised tariff within 60 days governing its Rate Years 2 and 3 distribution rates. Staff supports OPC's proposal regarding a stride notice for BGE gas customers that OPC submitted Monday. As Ms. Garofalo explained, staff members from various divisions are available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
So, any questions from the commissioners? All right, seeing none, do we want to move on to, I guess, OPC?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Michael Sammartino on behalf of the Office of People's Counsel. We don't have much to add to our supplemental comments. We would like to extend our gratitude and thanks to staff and BGE for a number of productive discussions on the issues raised in staff's and OPC's initial comments on this compliance filing. And we especially appreciate BGE's willingness to work with staff and OPC to develop a customer notice regarding BGE's decision to move away from the STRIDE program. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about our comments, but don't really have much to add this morning. Thank you.
Okay, just so I'm straight on this, this last item related to STRIDE. So the agreement is that staff, OPC, and the company would get together and compile some bill notice that would go out to customers about what's going on with STRIDE. Is that correct?
My understanding is over the long term, a bill notice would be preferred, but in discussions, and I'm sure counsel for BGE can speak more authoritatively on this, OPC's understanding is that there are some technical issues that may impede the company's ability to get a bill notice up in the near term. So, as part of our discussions, the company is agreed to work with the parties to develop a notice for the website and the mobile application.
I
but
see. Okay.
if-
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
So, any questions for OPC? All right.
No, Chairman.
So why don't we move to the company then?
Good morning, Chairman Hoover, Commissioners, Beverly Sikora on behalf of BGE. First of all, happy Valentine's Day. Yes, ditto on everything staff and OPC have said. You know, we are willing to work with them on both the math for the rate years 2 and 3 rates, and then also to come up with language to put on first the website and the mobile app, and then eventually the bills to explain that costs that used to be recovered through the stride surcharge are now going to be recovered through base rates. And
Okay.
again, it was it's amazing when we sit down and talk and kind of put things out, we can accomplish things. It's quite nice.
So, any questions for the company?
No,
Seeing
Chairman.
none. All right, so I move that we accept the company's proposed rate year 1 distribution rates. Second, I move that we adopt the company's proposed reconciliation rates effective from March 1, 2024 through February 28, 2025. 3, that we accept the company's new tariff provisions with the exception of the gas rider 16 stride tariff and the electric and gas reconciliation riders. 4th, require that the company make a clean tariff filing with the gas rider 16 maximum charge set to 0 for all customer classes and updated effective dates for electric rider 16 and gas rider 15 reconciliation rates. 5th, require the company to meet with staff, OPC, and other interested parties regarding the rate year 2 and rate year 3 distribution rates and file a revised tariff within 60 days governing its rate years 2 and 3 distribution rates. And then finally, that the company meet with staff and OPC regarding communications to customers regarding the future of Stride. With that, Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the final item on today's agenda is from Potomac Electric Power Company, comments and request to amend order number 89664.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I think we couldn't have chosen a more appropriate day to express our love for you all. DeAndre Wilson on behalf
But
of
what does that really mean?
It means we're halfway there. We're halfway there. We're halfway there. Pursuant to the Energy Storage Pilot Program Act, the Commission issued order number 89240 in case number 9619, establishing the Energy Storage Pilot Program. Accordingly, PEPCO filed a joint application with the Commission for approval of its Livingston Road Energy Storage Pilot Project, formerly known as the National Harbor. On November 6, 2020, the Commission issued order number 89664, approving the project, subject to the general conditions specified in the order. Since its approval, PEPCO has filed 3 requests for extension of the operational start date for the project. PEPCO's first request for an extension of the operational start date was filed on October 1st of 2021 due to extended battery system lead times, permitting, and contract negotiation delays. The company's second request for an extension of the operational start date was on July 29th of 2022 due to significant supply chain delays caused by global shortages and increased factory production demand levels and additional approval requests by the Prince George's County Planning Department, which extended the project schedule by 5 months. The company filed its third request for an extension of the operational start date on February 14th of 2023 due to its vendor who failed to maintain a certificate of good standing with Maryland and to meet several project milestones, causing significant delays, which resulted in the company terminating its vendor agreement and acquiring the services of new contractors in an attempt to complete the substation electrical engineering, procurement, and construction of the project. In addition, Prince George's County Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement subsequently recommended several improvements to the project, which affected the in-service date and project costs. On September 11th, 2023, PEPCO filed a request that the Commission amend Order Number 89664 and reject the Livingston Road Energy Storage Pilot Project as the company no longer supports its inclusion in the Energy Storage Pilot Program because it is no longer in the public's interest. The company states that due to the fact that the expected overloads at the Livingston Road substation are no longer projected to occur within the next 10 years, the project would no longer defer a $10 million distribution upgrade needed for a new substation, causing a significant impact on the project's benefit-cost ratio, which, as noted in its original comments to the filing, staff previously calculated the BCR to be in the range of 0.79 to 0.48, which included the upgrade deferral. At an administrative meeting held on November 21st of 2023, the Commission suspended its ruling on PEPCO's request, subject to PEPCO providing additional information about project cost, efforts to reuse or sell equipment associated with the project, and additional documentation regarding the company's community engagement efforts. On January 16, 2024, PEPCO filed the requested information. Based on this review of the supplemental information filed by PEPCO, in addition to the project's decreased BCR and the company no longer forecasting an overload at its Livingston Road substation, staff's position from that presented at the November 21st, 23 administrative meeting remains the same, and therefore recommends the Commission grant the company's request to amend Commission Order Number 89664 and reject the Livingston Road project as not being in the public's interest. And staff also supports PEPCO's request, allowing the company's Fairmont Heights microgrid project to be considered for inclusion in the Energy Storage Pilot Program as an alternative project. Pursuant to Public Utilities Article 7-26H216H4 and 7-216H5, staff recommends the Commission accept PEPCO's supplemental filing and grant the company's request to amend Commission Order Number 89664 to reject PEPCO's Livingston Road Energy Storage Pilot Project as not being in the public's interest, and allow staff and other parties 60 days to evaluate and provide comments on the company's proposed replacement microgrid project. Staff would like to point out that OPC has filed comments in reference to this filing and staff is available to address any questions at this moment.
So, any questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Commissioner Richard.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for your presentation. Just on the second part of your recommendation that we allow consideration for a second filing, a second project filing. A couple questions on that. First of all, I'd like to understand a little, at this point in the pilot, which should be at the very end, and the fact that we are now looking for, ahead to the next distribution level storage program. Do you think it's appropriate at this point that we take on a first pilot project this late in the process?
To answer your question, Mr. Commissioner, I believe so. Yes. The statute still allows the commission to determine an end date for the pilot program if it feels that there is more learnings that can be gained from these projects. So a reporting in regards to if it's appropriate or not is still up to the commission to make a decision on that if it finds that there are continued benefits and learnings that can come from any project that's included in this program.
Okay, and you just make note that you're aware of OPC's filing, so I presume that means you've read it, and they've already kind of previewed some concerns on prudency that we'll probably be taking up at I understand if from their filing, OPC's filing in a rate case setting. Do you have any concerns about the company's I guess capabilities, or any concerns about how they've managed or mismanaged the first project that they've now are asking to cancel, that should give us pause as to whether or not we consider a second filing?
Yes, we've definitely followed this energy storage project throughout its lifetime so far, and we have noted concerns about their approach in regards to managing their vendor and meeting certain milestones and the continued requests for operational deadline extensions. One thing we want to point out is that, or what we try to keep in mind, is that these are new technologies that the utilities are trying to embrace and that the state is trying to incorporate on the electric grid. So there is expected delays and issues that may deter implementation of some of these programs. That's not saying that it doesn't go without saying that we feel that they may have mismanaged the project. But they have successfully established one other project, which is the Bus Depot project. So with that, we still feel like there's room for the utility to introduce a new project for us to consider with further consideration whether that project should be included in the pilot project. One other thing that I just want to point out is that in OPC's comments, they stated that the statutory requirement had been met, which, based on staff's information, has not been met. The statutory requirement requires that the cumulative size of the pilot projects under the program shall be between 5 and 10 megawatts with a minimum of 15 megawatt hours. With the projects that are currently active right now, we have a cumulative of 5.5 megawatts, but we fall short of the 15 megawatt hours, and currently we are at 11.8 megawatt hours. So we have not met the statutory requirement as of yet. There were 8 projects that were presented in the pilot program. 5 are currently active, and what I've just read is the total cumulative thank you, size of the projects, which is 5.5 megawatts with the 11.8 megawatt hours. So, and we still have 2 projects that are pending approval. With those projects, there's a possibility that we we could meet the statutory requirement, but the way that these projects have been going so far, we really can't put a finger on as to whether that will be the case or not. We've just had one utility come in and ask for an extension already, so that has been extended. So, so staff does not have a does not hold any prejudice against the company submitting this new project, which in fact is a different project than the other projects we have. This project that they are proposing is a microgrid project, which will provide primary application will be islanding, peak shaving, but the load management portion is what it will be bringing that we will have interest in, and how a microgrid can be leveraged for the benefit of the grid, since we don't have any other pilot projects that currently have those capabilities or are a microgrid.
Yeah, no, I agree. That is an important consideration. So, okay, I just, as we're looking at, this pilot project, this Project Pro program, I mean, obviously we did have some targets as far as, how much, but we're looking at how it works on the distribution side, the capabilities of distribution utilities to carry out these projects, looking at different models. So I am interested to hear from our consumer advocates as well as to, this, since the ratepayers are bearing the risk, is it good to continue to throw money in this pilot program, or, should we, pause and maybe consider, what money's been spent to date and what we have to show for it. So that's.
If I can add,
sure.
The learnings that the utilities that have active projects have been filing their status reports in regards to the performance of those pilots, and that information has been or can be beneficial for the existing energy storage program that we have now, in order to help shape mechanisms and safety concerns that may come with us moving forward with the energy storage program. And also, I know benefit cost has been a big conversation in regards to energy storage. Staff is very much aligned with the commission in regards to its concern with benefit cost, but we also want to detail some of the other benefits that can come with energy storage, aside from benefit cost. For instance, there's resilience, there's grid services, grid support, for example, and this isn't me advocating for community solar. I know you all have heard enough about community solar and things in that regard today already, but staff had a conversation with the utility in regards to an outage that occurred in their region. And upon us having a conversation with the utility, they brought to our attention how they were able to leverage a community solar project in order to provide or restore power to its customers in this region, while the company identified the root of the cause and prepared or were able to prepare the grid or their electric grid as a result of that incident. So that's just an example of the benefit or the resilience that a project such as energy storage can bring for a utility in order to leverage.
Yeah, and I don't dispute that. I agree that there are a lot of benefits to storage and community solar. I'm more focused right now on the performance of this particular pilot and the utilities that have participated in the pilot. So
Yeah.
that's where my concern is really.
Yes.
But yes, I take your point. I think this is an important state policy, and I would like to see it succeed in our state. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Sussman.
Yeah, almost good afternoon, Mr. Wilson. I can assure you that I never tire of talking about community solar. But I have a question about the microgrid. Can you tell me what the size of the microgrid is, the kind of technology that's being used, what sort of its? I understand that it's for grid support, but I'm assuming that there's also an energy component of that as well.
I do have some information on the grid.
I mean, this may be more appropriate for the company
The-
to answer, but if you've
Yeah.
got that information.
It's the size is 227.4 kilowatts with a 292.2 kilowatt hours.
Okay, and then is it battery? Is it?
It's a battery. It's a battery plus storage. Technically.
Okay, and
Solar.
solar. Okay.
I'm sorry. Solar plus storage.
Okay. And the microgrid is going to be serving.
The microgrid. They're looking. The primary application is for islanding, peak shaving, and load management.
Okay, so the microgrid is not going to be serving a community. It's
Serving a small collection of houses.
Okay.
I think it's about 6 houses in a small little housing community.
Okay, and then Pepco's going to own the solar, own the battery, own the wires.
No, Pepco will not own the solar, but they will own the other components of
Okay.
the project.
So another company is going to own the solar, service the solar.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, so I guess OPC?
Good morning, almost afternoon. Natalie Novak on behalf of the Maryland Office of People's Counsel. OPC continues to support Pepco's request to discontinue the Livingston Road Battery Energy Storage Project, which the company repeatedly defended as valuable despite multiple obstacles and delays, because it is no longer in the public interest. Pepco's numerous requests for extensions of the operational start date and associated cost increases, its questionable assertion that the project's benefits stemmed from the avoided cost of a substation upgrade that turned out to be unneeded, the community opposition to this project, and the company's apparent failure to properly vet and manage its contractor, which resulted in the termination of that contractor, the hiring of a new contracting firm, and equipment that doesn't meet the specifications of the project, have resulted in significant stranded costs of $4.1 million, and demonstrates that this project is no longer in the public interest. In discontinuing the Livingston Road project, OPC requests the Commission state that approval of this request is not an implicit approval of Pepco's new battery energy storage project application, which was filed on October 17th, 2023. Further, I want to briefly discuss the prudency of these costs, as many of the reasons that support a Commission finding that the project is no longer in the public interest also support a Commission finding in the current Pepco rate case that the costs expended for the Livingston Road project were imprudent. Specifically, the ongoing assertion that the project's benefits stemmed from the avoided cost of a substation upgrade that turned out to be unneeded. Costs for this project are now estimated at $13.87 million, which is up from $4.6 million, and has resulted in a current BCR of 0.8. However, this BCR isn't entirely accurate because it fails to account for the drastic change to one of the main benefits of this project. In Pepco's application for the Livingston Road project, the company stated that the benefits associated with the project were primarily due to the avoided cost of a distribution substation upgrade, which was based on 2020 load forecast for the Livingston Road substation. Pepco's 2022 load forecasts for the Livingston Road substation, which again were current at the time of the application for the Livingston Road project, projected a 1% overload in 2027 and a 2% overload in 2028. However, it's a little unclear how these 2022 forecasts accounted for the Gaylord Hotel microgrid that was operational in 2018, 2 years before the 2020 load forecasts. Nevertheless, in its 2022 load forecast of the Livingston Road substation, Pepco projected almost zero load growth, indicating that the substation's existing capacity was more than adequate for the foreseeable future, through at least 2032 and likely beyond the forecast time horizon based on flat trajectory. Therefore, based on the 2022 load forecast, the Livingston Road project no longer created a deferral benefit, which would substantially reduce the BCR. However, Pepco never updated the BCR to account for the diminished benefits. Pepco could have provided this information in its second or third extension requests, which were filed on July 29th, 2022 and February 14th, 2023, respectively. However, Pepco did not do this, which reflects a critical project management failure or a deliberate lack of transparency. Because the benefits of this project drastically diminished in 2022, it was not prudent to continue to spend funds on this project, which included the hiring of a new civil engineering and permitting firm after the original contractor was terminated. Pepco either failed to re-examine the continued need for the Livingston Road project at key decision points, or neglected to share the results of any internal analysis. This oversight, combined with the mismanagement of its original contractor and the company's failure to adequately address community concerns, demonstrate this project is not in the public interest and the costs were not prudent. Thank you very much.
So any questions for OPC?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Richard.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I did want to, and some of these things I'm not going to really get into now because I think they are more appropriately discussed during the rate case. But I was interested in some of the discussion here. I can find it. Thought I had my notes right in front of me. I didn't.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just I was fumbling through my iPad notes.
Oh,
so,
okay.
so I wasn't.
Sorry about that.
I was talking to myself. Maybe just start with you did get into some discussion on your concerns about our community engagement. Do you have any concerns, again, because we do have another project that's pending in Ocean City, and that was one of those areas we did discuss, but you kind of go into quite a bit of detail that seems to almost look at systemic problems with how PHI is working with the community. Do you see any issues that we may need to address or hear further, so that if as we're looking at Ocean City and we consider potentially another project from Pepco, what are your thoughts there on, again, this community engagement angle, because it is pretty critical.
Yes, thank you for that question. I'll begin by noting that Pepco provided in the supplemental information, I believe, a list of community events or community occasions on which Pepco engaged with the community. And it was quite a few of them. I don't have the number in front of me, but I believe it was, over 20. And so based on some of the information that Pepco has provided, it might appear that adequate community engagement was indeed conducted. However, there's a disconnect between that information and what we've heard from the community. And I will say that OPC has heard from community groups in that area who were not feeling like their concerns were being addressed. And this was for quite a duration of time, many months. And if you listen to some of these community members presented a statement or testimony at the Prince George's County council meeting that's referenced in my letter, and you can watch it. They record them. You can watch them online. And some of these community members state that they have had concerns and have raised concerns and have tried to express the concerns to Pepco since 2020. So it does seem that there's a disconnect between the efforts that Pepco has stated that it was making during this time and the actual effects or how those were implemented in the community, because at least some community members, their concerns were not addressed by all of the community engagement that Pepco reported.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, and I think it's important we kind of air this here, and with the company here from the Consumer Advocate, again, about concerns with how the community engagement is being carried out, and hopefully we can find improvement on the company side. That yes, we need to do better, and because it also reflects on I believe the commission. If we believe things are happening and it's being represented to us that community engagement is taking place, and then we learn that there really are a lot of outstanding concerns, it makes us. I felt, at times that, I was deaf to what the community was trying to say, because again, I didn't hear it directly. So I think this is an important point, and I appreciate OPC bringing this up. The other is, I want to be clear on what your recommendation is about, how we should approach another filing by PEPCO at this stage of the pilot. You raised, I guess I'm reading, concerns about it, but do you have a stronger recommendation one way or the other? Is it a wait and see, or why don't we just put it down and stop spending money, or what? Can you be clear what exactly your recommendation is about how you would recommend we approach this possible second proposal?
Yes, I OPC supports staff's request for 60 days to do some additional investigation of the, I believe that was staff's request, of the microgrid project, the Fairmount Heights microgrid project proposed by PEPCO, and to do some further investigation into that project. Based on the investigation that OPC has done to date, we do not wholeheartedly support the Fairmount Heights microgrid at this point, but additional investigation and study will be done of the project, and I appreciate staff's comments about the threshold of megawatts versus kilowatt hours. So I think additional study has to be done on the project, but at this point, OPC it may not be supporting that project.
Okay, but you're okay with the staff recommendation that we go ahead and continue, and that we entertain at some point the project proposal. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Barbe.
Yeah. To the OPC representative, did I hear you correctly say that there were 20 public hearings?
Commissioner Barbe, I believe I have that information in one of my printouts, but PEPCO's representative just said that it was 30.
How many?
30.
30?
Correct.
30. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me just suggest something. Having been in office for 32 years and have constituents who oppose things, I don't think 500 public hearings would have satisfied the people who opposed battery. So I think it may be, maybe it's not, it may be a little unfair to criticize criticize PEPCO for being inadequately attentive to the opinion of the constituents who are implacably against a battery mechanism. So my second question, that's just a comment. My question really is that when OPC looks at these projects and looks to see whether or not the public interest is served, do you look exclusively to the cost-benefit analysis, or is it a combination of that and the public support and opposition? And do you ever take into consideration the possibility that the public interest might be served by having additional opportunities to store intermittent energy sources like solar and wind?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Barbe. OPC takes a number of factors into consideration when reviewing these projects, including all of the factors that you just stated. So yes, all of those factors are taken into consideration, and this is a pilot program, so there are additional factors there, such as learnings, which may not be applicable to non-pilot program projects. And just for the sake of the record, I will state that the community group that I was speaking of, when they gave remarks at the Prince George's County Council, did state that they are not against battery storage, but they were against the way that it was done in that instance.
Well, pretty much everybody says they're not opposed to things. They're just opposed to them in their neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any other questions for OPC? All right, so why don't we move on to the company, and let me just say before the company starts, while you may feel compelled to respond to the comments OPC made about prudency of the cost, we do plan on examining that issue and deciding that issue in the multi-year rate case, not today.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Seegers, appearing on behalf of the Potomac Electric Power Company. Good afternoon. The company appreciates staff's comments and has no objection to staff's request that in the event that the commission grants PEPCO's request to reject the Livingston Road project, that the commission provide for a 60-day review period for parties to review our proposed alternative, which is the Fairmount Heights microgrid project, which was filed on October 17th, 2023. The company also appreciates OPC's conclusion that the commission should grant our request to reject the Livingston Road project. In addition, we have no issues with OPC's their position that the commission's approval of the company's rejection request is not an implicit approval of the Fairmount Heights project, which the commission will separately consider. However, PEPCO does take issue with several assertions made by OPC in their comments and would like to respond as follows. First, OPC alleges that our load forecast did not accurately reflect the decrease in load in the area, nor did we properly account for the CHP generator at the Gaylord Hotel. But these assertions are just incorrect. The company conducts our 10-year load forecasts on an annual basis. And at the time that we submitted the Livingston Road project to the commission back in 2020, our load forecast indicated that a substation overload was going to happen at Livingston Road. Based on that forecast, we determined that additional distribution investment was going to be needed to address that. Now, contrary to OPC's claims, PEPCO's load forecast did account for the Gaylord CHP. However, the existence of the CHP, it does not mean that we can plan our distribution system only to serve the portion of the Gaylord load not serviced by the CHP. We have to be prepared to serve all of the Gaylord's load in the event that the CHP goes offline. Just because of the fact that we have a duty to serve all of our customers and to serve all of their need. If the CHP goes down during a major event, such for example as July the 4th or Super Bowl Sunday, we can't tell the Gaylord, sorry, we can't serve your load because we didn't plan for that. Now, because we were statutorily obligated to implement a battery project, the company prudently determined that we could service the forecasted need at the Livingston Road substation in a cost-effective manner by installing a battery, which our forecasts at that time indicated that it would defer the need for a substation and represent a cost savings for our customers. Now, OPC claims that the 2022 through 2031 forecast indicated no growth, but this is incorrect. Out of the 13 years worth of load forecasts that we provided to OPC, only the 2023 forecast, which was just conducted last year, that indicated that there was going to be no overload at the Livingston Road substation. Now, upon terminating our contract with our vendor, AF Mensa, the company conducted an analysis to determine whether or not we were going to keep moving forward with this project. And in order to do that, we had to determine, is there still going to be an overload at Livingston Road? And as the company has previously said, it was then that we determined that there was not going to be a need at the Livingston Road. And that is why we are asking to move away from this project. Now, second, OPC contends that Pepco did not adequately address community concerns regarding the battery project. But even a cursory review of the information that we provided on January the 16th would show that this claim is just not, it's baseless. Over a period of 3 years, as we've already discussed, the company has engaged in more than 30 meetings with community members, office holders, local officials. The company brought in safety officials to speak about fire concerns. The company did everything that it possibly could to address all concerns that were raised from the community. It is true that there were some community members that were just simply not persuaded by what the answers that we were providing. But we did go above and beyond to try and address all concerns that we became aware of. And finally, OPC appears to be requesting that this commission make a prudence determination in the context of this proceeding. However, as I spoke about in the prior administrative meeting in November the 21st, that would be improper. With this filing, we are only seeking to be relieved of our statutory obligation to complete this project. We are not asking this commission to render any kind of a decision on any kind of prudency or cost recovery with this filing. The prudency on cost recovery for the Livingston Road, as we've indicated, that will be done in the context of a rate case. And in that regard, I would like to provide the following updates. As the company detailed in the rebuttal testimony that it filed in case number 9702, the company has removed the Livingston Road project from its rate base and all the costs related to that project from the 9702 MYP proceeding. So those costs are no longer, we're not going to be seeking recovery from our customers for that particular MYP. Moreover, as detailed in the company's rebuttal testimony, the company has determined that the costs for the contracting materials incurred by its vendor represent about $1.8 million. The company is proposing to take accountability for that and to pursue the recovery of costs of that amount through other avenues. And if we're successful, fine. If we are not, then we are not going to seek recovery of that from our customers. This is basically us showing that we did choose this vendor and we do need to take some accountability for that. The remaining amount, $2.3 million, that represents costs that the company would have had to incur regardless of who our vendor was. And these costs, for example, such as the permitting and internal engineering costs. So we believe these costs were prudently incurred and we will be seeking recovery of those amounts. Now, the avenue for where this will occur is that this recovery will be sought in Pepco's final reconciliation filing in our current existing MYP, which is case number 9655. That filing will be made in July of this year. Under the MYP procedure, all parties, including the Office of People's Counsel, will have an opportunity to scrutinize all of our reconciliation costs, which includes the Livingston Road costs, and they will have an opportunity to challenge any costs that they feel are imprudent. And then the Commission will have an opportunity to examine those costs, and they can make a final determination on what the reconciliation rates will be. And then those rates will flow through our current existing MYP adjustment rider. And in response to a question that Commissioner Richard, I know that you have raised, the storage statute this is regarding whether or not the Commission should take up a second project. What the statute requires is that the utilities have to make a filing with the Commission. If the Commission rejects that filing, then the company is obligated within 3 months to make an alternative filing. And then the Commission does need to at least review and issue an order on that proceeding. The Commission can make whatever determination it wants based on the facts before it, but the way the statute reads is that we do have to provide an alternative. And our alternative, as I've indicated before, is the Fairmount Heights project. So with that, I and some of our subject matter experts are available if there are any questions.
All right, let me ask actually the first question, and I want to follow up on your last response that was sort of in response to Commissioner Richards' question, because I have similar concerns about the usefulness of another project, given the fact that the General Assembly has decided that energy storage is significant enough that it should become policy of the state. So I guess what I want to find out from you is, what do you expect that we would learn from your new project that would help advise the commission going forward in developing the energy storage program on a permanent basis? Or are we only doing this project because, as you said, you're required under the statute to do certain things and you did what you're required to do?
Well, Mr. Chairman, as I said before, we are obligated to provide an alternative. But in terms of the Fairmount Heights project, it is unique in the sense that, and staff alluded to this in their comments, that it is a microgrid. No, I'm not aware of any of the other storage projects that have that kind of a setup where it's a microgrid. So I definitely think that there are some very important learnings that we can get from this project. So we do believe that it is worthwhile.
Okay. All right. So any other questions for the company from other commissioners? Okay. With that, I move that we accept, pursuant to Public Utilities Article 7-216H4 and 7-216H5, the company's supplemental filing, and grant the company's request to amend Commission Order Number 89664 to reject the company's Livingston Road Energy Storage Project as it is not in the public interest, and allow staff and other parties 60 days to evaluate and provide comments to the Commission on the company's proposed replacement project. Commissioner Sushman.
Aye.
Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are no more items on today's agenda.
Did the chairman vote on that?
Well, actually, I didn't hear Commissioner Richards vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Aye. Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
sorry.
I vote aye. So with that, as was mentioned, there's no other items on the agenda, so the administrative meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Here we go.